Nevertheless, as I said, by establishing the legal precedent for a law that I knew had to be amended, I was willing to risk my and my daughter as they abused her in the 5th grade and abused me as PTA President of the KBK8 Center. So many parents came after me and demanded I resign. So many parents couldn't realize that I was the class of 1977 when I was elected. So many parents didn't understand that that school had to be converted. It was sitting below sea level. It had been built over 55 years ago. It's full of asbestos, lead, and mercury, and other contaminants. A Castaldo study that was done by Miami-Dade County Public Schools in 2009 showed these contaminants existed. What it did suggest that the building should be knocked down and build anew above flood level criteria, as Key Biscayne is a barrier island. It actually sits in the toilet bowl of the island, meaning all the water rushes to the center of the island where the school sits and floods immensely. You can see those videos of the flooding on my YouTube channel, Macontherock Rampage. It's ironic that in my failure, as part of a much bigger campaign to build a high school on Virginia Key, known as the Mass Academy, although I was successful at that attempt, the village council, in not liking that I was taking such a forward position, did not realize that $17 million for a 9 through 12 Mass Academy instead of the $24 million Mass Academy Key Biscayne that included 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11, and 12 instead of 9 through 12. Because we had 6, 7, 8 at the KBKA Center. That's caused tremendous traffic jams as mothers return home to Key Biscayne in the early morning and return home again in the late afternoon at 3 o'clock, causing terrible traffic jams daily. And then naturally we have traffic jams on the weekends because of our beach and our state parks and our county parks. So you can imagine, people don't get it. In the renovation of the KBK8 Center has evolved into a cluster of cancer. 17 teachers, as of today, have been discovered to have had breast cancer. 4 people have died. It's my understanding that it was 2 teachers and 2 staff members. One of them male. 2 parents have also passed away. In fact, everyone who has opposed me in opposition has found out about these cancers and nobody wants to talk about it. There's another great irony, is what happened in Rolette Elementary in Manatee County. The county was suffering serious funding issues. So the parents at Rolette banded together with Principal Flynn, who got them the teacher's vote a year after my failure. Brian Flynn was his name. He picked my brains as he wanted to stay after he retired from the county. The best of all worlds. So there you have it. A converted school with the existing law. Did I not give the teachers more power than ever before? It's made me very sick, physically sick. And doesn't that mean that the Republican Party, who are screaming and clamoring about school choice, are fearing the change they seek? By not amending the law, it's very difficult to prove that you could save surpluses, you can be funded directly, your school budget's funded directly by the state of Florida's Department of Education. And the county gets to have a pass-through of about 4 to 5% as they pass these money on to the parents. But when you say the surpluses, you could renovate these schools annually. Rolla Elementary is on the voyage to buy another school within the county. So they're expanding with these surpluses. What more could you want? No more need for those massive school bonds or waiting for school bonds to pay for facilities. The biggest problem we have in America. The other irony is, you know you're onto something when it's the end-all be-all, when charter school developers, charter school operators are working really hard against you. The school district managers, bureaucrats, superintendents are working hard against you. And even the politicians, especially in blue states or in very liberal counties, they're fighting against you. Why is that? Why? Because the reinvention of the public school system puts a lot of people in suspect relationships with their students. Even parents who believe in the system are suspect about the mistrust that they have among their fellow parents. As if the school district is better, as the school district is more trustworthy, as if the school district has succeeded. For every one child who makes it in life, the school system makes it seem like it's 100 kids that make it in life. The vast majority of children in the inner city schools can't even read. I believe there's such a case in Baltimore where there's not a single child in the lower grades from 1 through 5 can read at grade level. Not one. And I believe it was more than 20 schools studied or surveyed or tested. You could do this research yourself. When everybody's against you, you're definitely the majority of one. I believe I quoted Frederick Douglass, as he understood that better than anyone else. Think about the United States of America. How far can this continue? How far before we're all in food lines? Your children can't get a job. In fact, worse, they're not even ambitious enough to get a job. They're not innovative enough to seek a job. They're not interested in having children. The political bipolarity of the left is clear. I call it in the Urban Dictionary the progressive virus. It's not a biological virus, it's a computer virus in the psychological high drive of a liberal and a progressive. Everything they propose, everything in the last 120 years has driven down the birth rates of the United States of America. You know what that means? Who will pay for the benefits, the social welfare programs that they themselves have advocated if there aren't any people making a living to pay for Social Security, welfare benefits, Obamacare? Think about these things. It starts with public school. But when politicians want to solve the problem, not you and I, we've got a huge uphill climb. It's no walk in the park. The most important thing I mentioned in the previous two parts, this being the third, is one big objection that must be overcome is the actual language in the law. Conversion to charter. 1002-33, clause 3B. The reason why this is such a perfect amendment is because it's not charter at all. And it shouldn't be in the name. It causes too much objection. There's some people who don't like charter. There's some parents whose kids have already been in charter and they still weren't satisfied with the kids' progress. Parents love to blame everybody but themselves. The reason why it's not charter is when you convert to school by vote. Unlike charter, you don't pay rent for the schools you overcome and you've overtaken. Think about it. You take over a public school and you don't have to pay rent for those facilities. In charter, it's exactly the opposite. Parents seek out the developer with a charter that gets approved to a site unknown. Then when they get their charter approved, they seek that developer to build them a school. And then that developer charges them rent. They don't really pay the rent themselves. The state of Florida does. With those monies I told you transfer through a holding escrow account within the school district. So you can imagine, you don't have to spend money on recruiting children. The developer doesn't have to market the school. The parents don't have to market the school. And in fact, you're operating with a lot more cash flow to operate a good running school. That's why saving surpluses is so important and vital. And if the school was overcrowded, as the case in KBK8 Center, there was $1 million surplus in the budget because the school's overcrowded. Back then it was $9,600 per student. That could have been the reason why they wanted to take and lower the amount of kids in 6th, 7th, and 8th to move them over to the Massed High School on Virginia Key, a barrier island just north of Key Biscayne. Although I objected to that publicly in writing, it soon played itself out. KBK8 Center continued overcrowded to this day. The only difference is that it ruined Master County as more young, immature, adolescent type kids joining kids on their way to college. Not a good combination. As you can see from what I explained to you in this part 3, if you're watching this one first, watch 1 and 2. It's not important that you watch them in order, although you'll get it when you do. But watch all 3. Send it to every single parent that's active enough, because it's obvious to me that too many parents are sitting on their hands. Too many grandparents are sitting on their hands. Too many people in the know sitting on their hands. Too many politicians that I've gotten to know, that I put my money where my mouth is, are sitting on their hands. Each and every one of them have looked me straight in the eyes, saying they were going to do something about this and thanked me for my effort, and did nothing. I'm in a unique experience because my predicament is different. I'm not your average Joe. I'm actually politically involved and people know who I am. So much so that when I lost my freedom of speech over this endeavor, when the Miami Herald fake news me, when I did all these things, I didn't just stand around and sit on my hands and weep in a corner. I stood up, participated in an FCC lottery, and bought my freedom of speech back. I said that in part 1. Understand the difference. I just elevated my ground game. And even though I'm on the radio, I'm here on a video. Like, subscribe to Macontherock Rampage. Pass an amendment, as I suggest, on parentguardianshipschool.com. You can go to WSQF Radio homepage and search for my book, The Fiscals, and seek Parent Guardianship School, chapter on schooling. If you want to know the play-by-play of 2013, what they actually did to my daughter and I, go to my diary on the block spot called KBK8 conversion to charter .blogspot.com.